Hey everybody, Chris with Plays with Water. So today's video, what we're going to do is we're going to show you a couple different ways of doing water changes on two very different tanks. So sit back, enjoy, and if you like today's video, make sure you hit like and subscribe, and yeah, let's get to it. Okay. Alright, so here's the 75-gallon planted African cichlid tank. And we're going to do a water change on it.
That's Beetlejuice, right?
That's Beetlejuice there. Fred usually hides in the left-hand corner. He'll probably pop out later. He's a little intimidated by Beetlejuice. I don't blame him. Beetlejuice is pretty big and mean. So the name's fitting. Got a cracked jaw down there in the lower right. He's my deformed Morai cichlid, but he gets along fine with everybody. That stem plant that's growing in the middle and on the left-hand side, that's the Pogostemon erectus. It grows like a weed in all my tanks, so I think that's the only reason why that plant is still doing so well in that tank. The only problem with it is it does collect a bit of detritus on it. So you'll see that when we get a little closer in there doing the water change on this. So I always like to clean the glass first. So that way everything that gets scraped off the glass gets into the water column, so it's easier to suck it out. You don't want to clean the glass when you're refilling it because everything's just going to go into your new water that you just filled into there. Now the glass is pretty clean already in this tank because I got a Siamese algae eater in there. And he's worked out great with the cichlids because Siamese algae eaters are a little on the aggressive side. So the cichlids can hold up to him and vice versa. He's worked out really well in there. It's a bit of an experiment, but so far so good.
Yeah, he definitely looks good.
Yeah, I really love that flipper glass cleaner. The blade on it just cuts right through the most stubborn of algae.
Definitely.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to siphon out some of the water into a 5-gallon bucket so we can clean the sponge filters. See, this is where I'm kind of cleaning off the detritus that built up on the Pogostemon a bit.
So you don't gravel your vacuum your substrate?
No, it's I don't do it on planted tanks. This isn't heavily planted, but between the plants and the cichlids kind of stirring up the sand, I've really never needed to gravel vac. So here we're this is me pulling out the sponge filter. Now it's better to use a bag to try to catch all the stuff that falls off of it. I just had the container; it didn't work as well, and you can see why. You can see all the detritus that's now floating in the water column. But that's okay because another reason I can get away from not gravel vacuuming is I kind of stir everything into the water column. So now I'm just sucking out everything that's in the water column. So that's a good tip for planted tanks is, you just stir it up a bit so you're not disrupting the sand bed and uprooting plants, because that's the problem with gravel vacuuming a planted tank. So now, so instead of gravel vacuuming using siphon, what I do is I put in a submersible pump. I believe I picked this one up from Harbor Freight. It was like 25 bucks or so. So I hook up one end of the hose to the pump, and the other end is going into my slop sink, which you'll see in a minute. Now, during the summer or when it's nicer out, I do use that water for my gardens. So here's the sponge filter. You can see just how full of fish poo that really is. It's that's some brown water there.
And it's important to do that in the tank water, right?
It is and it isn't. You know, I recently watched a video on Primetime Aquatics, and he explained why you don't have to do it this way, that you can use just the tap water or whatever water source that you use to fill your tanks with. And he goes into the science of it and all that, but, you know, it's easy enough for me to do it this way, so that's just how I continue to do it. So it's recommended, but not necessarily necessary, I guess.
It's definitely a great channel to watch.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Primetime Aquatics because he goes into the science on a lot of these things. And if you understand the science behind it, it kind of just makes things that much more simplistic when you're doing it.
All right, sponge filters back in.
Now I'm using that nasty water that was in the 5-gallon bucket for the house plants. The house plants absolutely love it. So nothing goes to waste here.
Still got that water draining in the corner there.
Yeah, we're going to be doing about a 50% water change on this tank. I don't like to do monster water changes with the Tanganyikan fish because they tend to be a little more sensitive to changes. I've never really had issue, but, you know, I do a 50% every week. And between the plants, you know, and them stirring everything up all the time, I haven't had any crazy nitrate spikes or anything like that. It's not overstocked like you would do with, say, a Malawi tank where I have, you know, a ton of fish in there to break up aggression. There's only 3 Lulupi, 2 Compresseps, and then the Frontosis. Now, this is a clip of me trimming out of one of my planted tanks. And we pretty much just threw this in here to kind of show you that when you're doing a water change is a good time to trim your plants up. This makes things a little easier, and if there's any debris from the plants from trimming them, it's a good time to be able to get it. It's much easier to get them out when you're doing a water change. All right, so the tank is drained down to about 50%. And what I pretty much do is I just take the pump out and reverse the flow from the slop sink to the tank now with fresh water. I have it going into a bucket. This avoids, because the slop sink is also a discharge for my washing machine. So any chemicals from doing laundry isn't going to come in contact with any of my equipment that goes into the tank. And there it goes. You know, I know people hate duckweed, and you and I, we have both come to now hate duckweed also. Yeah. But for a cichlid tank, and this is low flow too. I don't have power heads or anything. It's just the sponge filters. Well, no, there is a power head in there, but it's lower down. The duckweed is incredible for this tank. Ever since I added duckweed to this, it's really, really, you know, just helped with the water quality. And since there isn't a lot of obstruction towards the surface of the water, it's so easy to pull out if it becomes too much in there. Now, I'm sure you can see just how cloudy the water is. We just did a water change. It looks worse than before we did the water change. And that's just all micro bubbles from, you know, how I'm performing my water change. It clears up pretty quick, as you'll see. This is probably maybe, 30 minutes after we did the water change. You can see it's already clearing up much nicer. Yep. So I always try to treat my fish after water change. So in this case, they're going to get some krill.
Red's looking nice.
Yeah, he's got really nice colors. I'm just surprised he hasn't kept up with Beetlejuice as far as growth.
Very cool, planted African cichlid tank.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't torn anything up like I anticipated, especially that pogo stem. That was just a shot in the dark.
Mm. Right. So we're gonna do a water change on a much smaller aquarium now. It's this is my 10-gallon Caridina shrimp tank. I have some red crystals in there. It's a high-tech planted. I'm running CO2 and high light. There's out of sinkless catfish going crazy because I just turned the light on.
So what are you testing for now?
That's TDS. So I want to see what the shrimp are currently used to in terms of TDS. Actually turned out it was a bit high. So I'm going to make that a little adjustment there. And this is a pH meter now, man. It takes a little time for it to adjust. So I like to put a clamp on there, clamp it there, and then, take care of some other things like scraping. And then I'll read the pH level once it levels out.
Yeah, you had quite a bit of algae on that glass, it looks like, huh?
I let it go a little bit too long this time. I wanted to do my filming for this a little bit earlier, and then it didn't happen. So then it just grew worse and worse and worse until I finally got a chance to record this. It makes the difference between dirty and clean that much nicer, and I really enjoy looking at it now that it's clean. So I pulled out the drop checker, and I like to use shrimp feeding tubes to really control the shrimp foods that I put in, because using that dish that I'm pulling out now is I can pull out 24-hour-old food and therefore not create any ammonia spikes and not have to worry about the water quality as much. So it just makes everything easier, a little bit more technology, a glass tube and a dish, and it just goes a long way.
Oh yeah, I actually really like that. I've been thinking about doing that for my axolotl actually, because he's such a messy eater. So if I can kind of contain it a bit, I just got to find a big enough dish for an axolotl, because your little shrimp dishes ain't gonna cut it for a foot-long axolotl.
No, not at all, not at all. I'm actually with the fahaka, the baby fahaka that I'm using the same size dish, and he's getting used to using the dish for the food, and I'm gonna have to get a bigger dish, because this guy's
gonna get a big like salad serving bowl or something for him.
Yeah, pretty much. That was on food bowl.
And we will be keeping everybody updated on the growth of that fahaka pupper. He's a character. I'm pretty envious that you got one.
Yeah, he's been a kick. That's for sure. It's a totally different experience for me. So I like to use the back of the flipper.
I noticed you had a lot of you had some calcium buildup on the hard water stains on the top of the tank. And that's the really nice thing with this flipper, is that blade is good enough to kind of remove that calcium buildup. I encountered the same issue on my rimless tank. So
that was the back of the flipper, the scrubbing side that I like. I like to use that above the water level, just because it's a little less harsh and less chance of scratching.
Oh, okay.
Because the water really lubricates the blades in order to make sure you're not scratching the glass.
That's very true.
You're probably fine using the blade above the water. I just go a little extra step. I flip it around and I use the scrubbing side, and it cleans up the top quite well. It's not perfect. Yeah, you really should get in there.
They're a little on the pricey side, the flippers, but they're worth every dollar. They're worth every dollar you spend on them.
Yep. So here I'm using a little aquascaping tool, a little paddle that just to stir up any stuff that's on the bottom of the tank and get into the water column. And then I also have a toothbrush dedicated to doing just this, scrubbing rocks, any hardscape, even the filter. You know, why not make it look a little bit better? It just takes a few seconds, and
oh, absolutely,
get the stuff into the water column. So I'm going to use a vacuum gravel style siphon, and I'm running fluval stratum substrate in this tank, so it's not really the best for that. But once you get a carpet built up, it actually works quite nicely to pull the fish poo and just all the stuff out of the substrate. Once you have the carpet there, and you can see you just hold it down right up against the carpet, and it just pulls all the bad stuff out. If you start to get too much substrate or the plants come up, you shouldn't be vacuuming that spot.
Yes. Yeah.
So and then you just wait for it to grow in more, and then you worry about it.
Now I saw you kink the hose there a little bit. That's probably to adjust how hard of a suction you're creating.
Yeah, and so I was draining too much water too fast to get the whole tank done. So if you pinch the hose like that, it gives you a lot more time. You can also control how much you're pulling up if you're pulling up too much substrate. So here's my here's the Fahaka's current tank I wanted to show using the same tool on sand. And this is sand substrate, and it's perfect for it. I just dig it right into the sand. It gets a big chunk, I lift it up a little bit, and it drops the sand and pulls up all the nasty stuff. And it's just a very useful tool. I actually just started using it recently.
So you're going about 50% water change on this, it looks like.
Yep, that's my rule of thumb, 50%. I don't want to mess with the shrimp's water too much.
So how often are you doing the water changes? Just kind of by feel, or do you have a set schedule?
This tank, I let go usually about 2 weeks, just because there's like literally no bio load in there, and it's to keep the algae levels down and everything. But I also have to make the water for this tank. I use RODI water. I use salty shrimp GHKH plus to remineralize it, pH adjuster, and it's a little bit more detailed process than just going to your tap and hooking up the hose. So it doesn't get done as often as the other tanks where I do use tap, but it certainly gets done enough.
Yeah, go figure. A 10-gallon tank is more involved than a 75-gallon tank.
It all depends, It's what you choose to focus on. So I like using the breeder box if I have to use the bucket to pour in. It's just look at, I wiped it right away. And
that is such a great idea. I love that.
It's very, very useful. I'm just going to scoop out some of the plant material I don't want in there, maybe getting loose from the bottom, but there it is, right after the water change. There's one that I wanted to replant, apparently. Got some red root floaters in there, not many of them, but that's what's still floating there on the top.
Yeah, I really like that plant, but does not like surface agitation whatsoever.
Not at all. So it's still pretty cloudy after a water change, and that's normal.
So how many red crystals do you have in there currently?
There's like 8 adults, and recently had the first batch of shrimplets.
Oh,
so
excellent.
Can't tell you exactly how many. Here it is a couple hours later, all cleared up.
It is a very sharp looking tank.
Thank you. Yeah, this is it's only about maybe a month old, a month and a half. I'm excited to see it grow in.
And these are the Aquarium rimless tanks from Petco. You can catch them on the $1 per gallon sale for like half off. So for $20, you get a really sharp looking rimless tank. You know, you're not breaking the bank by going out and buying an 88 tank, you know, which would probably be 5 times the cost.
Yeah.
You spend that money on all the other equipment now that you have in there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's pretty much doing water changes on 2 different, completely different style setups. It's the big thing is finding a schedule that works for you and that works for the fish.
That is important.
You know, and that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and you know, see the other plans we got going on. See the progress, the new projects we got going on, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right. I like it.
All right.
We might do a different outro, but I like that we did that.